Thank you, everyone.
Muchas gracias.
I hope it's working. I don't really... Yeah, it's working? Okay. Dee told me we have the translation, so I will switch to Italian. And abbiamo con noi oggi...
We have here today Francesca Albanese. As you all know, she is the special envoy for the United Nations for occupied territories since 2022, and she has published 7 reports, the last of which on the 20th of October, which is the Gaza genocide. Around this term, collective, lies the strength of this report. The responsibility of the genocide in Gaza isn't limited to the borders of Israel. The United States have played a crucial part, just as many member states of the European Union, such as France, Germany, Italy, they have also played a part in all of this. This report looks at the responsibility of member states through military links, the diplomatic support, the use of military aid as a weapon, and economic and trade relations. This report follows up from a previous one and is strictly linked to it, which is titled From an Economy of Occupation to the Economy of Genocide. In this report, Ms. Albanese has looked at how multinationals have profited from the genocide in Gaza directly. These 2 reports together draw up a very clear picture of the legal responsibilities as well as the moral responsibilities that the world has towards the Palestinian people. I also believe, however, that the strength of these reports and these studies isn't limited to the legal standpoint, but to the awareness that this has brought about in people. And we can see this by looking at the number of people who are here today. Not everybody has read these reports, which were born of interviews, articles that certainly brought on a change. Just like myself, many other people have stopped using Amazon, Booking, Airbnb. This is my personal experience, but many others have done what I've done as well. And this is linked, and I'm coming to my conclusion here. It is linked to our individual responsibility. And I mean by that we should be responsible not only as private citizens, but in our professions, in the workplace. And I would like to refer to 2 cases which may seem unrelated, but I believe that we could learn something from here in a horizontal manner. The first one is from the words of Elena Cecchettin, the sister of Giulia Cecchettin, who 2 years ago was killed by her ex-boyfriend. Elena Cecchettin said that all men should have felt guilty, even the men who've never harmed a woman. And I have to admit that back then I didn't like that. I thought that it was being too general. Why should I feel guilty about that? But those words stuck with me. And after that, I understood the meaning of these words and the scope they had. Our responsibility when we're in a privileged position isn't limited to not committing a crime directly, but not doing anything to prevent this or to stop a context, a situation from being from happening, for something from happening is also makes us also complicit. I was also working in Sicily, and I was working on forestry, and the problem, they told me, wasn't mafia, but the mentality behind it. So the guilty person, the criminal, is not only the person who's actually shooting, but it's the situation, the context that is an enabling factor so that these people actually commit these crimes. So we need to look at these examples so that we can apply these to society as a whole. And I think that this is true for Gaza as well. I think that as in the Western world, we are responsible. Our responsibility goes beyond people who are simply the ones who drop the bombs. We are responsible from the moment in which we don't actively fight the genocide and we don't fight against the narrative, the rhetoric that is behind all of this and that has helped this to happen. And this is also true in our democratic institutions. Obviously, we all have our limitations. As journalists and MEPs, we have an even bigger responsibility. But this requires us to take action. In the latest report by Francesca Albanese, under point 74, she asks trade unions, civil society and citizens to monitor the actions of states. In her interviews, she also said that she feels that this is the first genocide that can be stopped by people. And if we have this power, we also have a responsibility.
Again, and I will give the floor to the deputies for a short introduction. First one, Danilo Della Valle from the left. Grazie.
I will speak Italian. Volevo ringraziare innanzitutto.
First of all, I would like to thank all of you for being here. It is a true honor to welcome Francesca Albanese and to open this meeting that has been organized by us. I'd like to thank Francesca Albanese for bringing her voice to these institutions. Her presence here and the report on the economy of the genocide are an important message because this institution is often described as the home of democracy and of human rights. But in my view, in recent years, it has turned into an institution that protects double standards. It has justified the genocide, and we have to fight this on a daily basis so that the truth can be spoken. And we're doing this. We have organized this meeting so that we can talk about what is happening to the Palestinian people that has been forgotten once more. They're being treated in a colonialist way. They are not given the right to self-determination and to express themselves politically. And all of this happens at a time in which everybody seems to speak of human rights and political rights. And so there are double standards here. The European Parliament and the European Union haven't been able of doing one single thing against the Israeli government that is fully responsible of the worst crimes against humanity. But we have voted the 19th package of sanctions against Russia. But I would like to thank you all. I'd like to thank Gabriele Nunziati as well, because I believe that they are an example and they give us hope. They show us that we can raise our heads and not simply turn our backs to what is happening today, which is extremely serious. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A big warm welcome to Your Excellency, Francesca. We have really been longing to see you, and we really have been awaiting your visit. It's long overdue. You have many supporters here, and as you see, I've never seen an EP room with so many visitors. So I'm really happy that you're bringing democracy back to this house as well. And I just wanted to thank you for democratizing human rights. You gave people back power to change the discourse of politics and their actions, and you're making them horizontal. And thank you for being there for those who have been searching for leadership but not founded in the political establishment, me included, the entire Parliament and the Commission included, and the Council, our governments and so on. You went to universities, you went to city halls, and you took on the responsibility and showed leadership. Thank you for that. And I'll call ourselves, we are the witches they couldn't silence. And this is how I think that we should also continue, not allow anyone to silence us. I'm really very much looking forward to hear you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Now to Mark Botenga from the left.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. But of course, it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to have Francesca Albanese, a special rapporteur, here tonight with us and to present this again a very important report. But I think many people here in Europe and also in Palestine have been most touched by the way in which not just the sound legal analysis, but also the deep voice of humanity, that when faced with the most horrible crimes we have seen that were unimaginable and at the same time on our screens every day, that in front of this we have this voice and these voices that incarnate justice, resilience, and deep, profound humanity that we see trampled in Palestine, but in front of which you have been one of the voices saying, we will not stand for this. This European Union that is complicit with these crimes, this is the message we have to carry here, is not our Europe. And there's a voice, there are voices that will continue to stand up for what is right. And dear Ms. Albanese, you have been in this an inspiration for many of us, and definitely all of us in this room. So thank you again for being here and presenting this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now to Estrella Galán from the left.
Thank you very much. I'm going to speak in Spanish. Gracias,
Thank you, Francesca. It's always an honor to welcome you, and you can see it in this room. We need people like you defending what you do through your reports. Shows really what there is in the case of Palestine. If today we have documents about the genocide, it's thanks to the reports written by Francesca, rigorous reports, true reports. But this truth is uncomfortable, where also your security is at stake, that has put at stake your work. The solidarity and the work in favor of the most vulnerable people is risky work. The report that you will present today, that we've been able to read, says clearly that we are confronted with or to a collective crime with the complicit states and the European Union, and where many of us and many countries have looked away whilst human rights were breached. To denounce here the economy of the genocide is of paramount importance. The resolution that has been approved in the UN tries to normalize the occupation once again and to leave Palestine or Gaza under a protectorate mandate, which doesn't allow the self-determination of the Palestine people. From the Spanish government, from SUMAR, we are working on a proposal to organize a real peace conference offering a clear solution, giving the voice to Palestine women and men. We want to defend the Palestine people and to put an end to the genocide. We have people here from the consumption ministries who have taken very seriously this fact of the economy of war. And you know perfectly well all the measures that have been adopted. This is our political role and our responsibility. We need to carry on mobilizing people. This genocide hasn't ended. Francesca is asking us to continue to go to the streets. We cannot leave this genocide without sanction, and we have to fight with Francesca for the truth. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the floor to Matthias Nemek from SD.
Thank you, Gabriele. Mai visto una cosa del genere, eh? Francesca, Gabriele.
Thank you, Gabriele. Francesca, I've never seen anything like that. One would think we are at the stadium.
Gabriele, a lot of solidarity also in your confronts. I mean, I think that it's needed. And of course, Francesca, thank you. Your immense courage, clarity, and moral consistency is amazing. I mean, it's let's say it's also very important for this house. Losing Borrell, it seems like that we've lost a voice of morality, of humanity, because he was the last one who actually raised some issues. But coming to you, your reports are not just a document, they are a mirror held up into the international community, asking us who we really are, and when we are faced with the injustice. Your work forces us to confront facts that the uncomfortable, urgent, and necessary. And it challenges all of us, especially members of this House. I mean, how to raise our voice to be echoed loud in these circumstances. I'm deeply honored to help host today's event and having you here. So we are very proud of you, and we have to follow you in many, many aspects. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Now the floor to Benedetta Scuderi from the Greens.
Grazie. I want to thank you, Francesca Albanese, for the work you're doing and how you depicted what is the system behind the genocide. Because genocide, it's not just what is happening in Gaza. The system of genocide is the system that we are all buying into. It's a system that is on exploitation, on violation. It's a system that is not stopped because people are profiting on it. And that's what you depicted us. That's what you showed with your work. So I really want to thank you for your work, because that's what you've been doing. You've been doing your job, and while doing your job, you were sanctioned. You had risks. You got consequences for doing your job. And this first, we need to say thank you, but we also need to say sorry. Sorry, because this parliament, these institutions are not doing their jobs, are not doing what we are supposed to do, respecting international law, respecting human rights, actually stopping what it needs to be stopped, stopping the genocide, stopping an ethnic cleansing, stopping the fact that we can profit on the sufferance and the exploitation and the disappearing of a population. That's what we are not doing. We are not doing our job. So we should really say that we are sorry. We are sorry because Europe is dying. In Palestine, Europe is dying because it's not doing what Europe was supposed to do. That was the protection of a system, the improving of a system that is international law system, the multilateral system. We are not protecting the human rights. Europe is dying in Palestine, and this parliament is dying with this Europe if we're not doing anything. So I want to take another second to thank all my colleagues that are here, the member of parliament that are here. But let me just say, we are the usual suspects. We are always the same faces doing this. We need to get the other people to listen. We need to get the other groups to listen. I would love for them to listen to what Francesca Albanese has to say, instead of only criticizing her, depicting us as a person that deserves to be persecuted. I want our governments, I want our fellow member of parliaments to start listening and not have prejudice, because these institutions need to act unless they don't need to survive in this way.
Thank you, Benedetta. And now the floor to Michael von der Schulenburg from Non-Attached.
Yes, thank you very much. Francesca, I'm admiring you for your amazing courage to defend people who don't have any rights, for having become the principal speaker, for saying this is a genocide and we have to do something about this. I deeply regret at the same time, Francesca, that you go through so much personal sufferings and difficulties as a result of this one. And I'm deeply ashamed as a EU parliamentarian of the failure of the European Union to respond appropriately to such a genocide. We are here from different political parties, and maybe I can use this, we have to start for us. Already among us, there are lots of difficulties among us because we come from different parties. But maybe we could come together across party lines to try to change something. We have to change something, and those who have now assembled around you might have to take your message on and work together, even if for other issues we don't like each other. That's very important, because otherwise we will never make any change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now finally the floor to Francesca Albanese.
Thank you very much. I'm going to speak in English. So, distinguished members of the European Parliament, I want to start with acknowledging those of you who organized and made this gathering possible, and all of you who are here tonight. Also, thank you very much for the kind words you used toward me, although I already feel very guilty because we spent, like 20 minutes talking about me and not about Palestine. And this is how how bad I feel. But no, I'm serious. Because I do believe, and this is why the room is so full. And by the way, am I the only one who remembers that the last time I was here, it was that packed as well? Yes. Mark. So the thing is that I do believe that I am an ordinary person, and this is why I resonate with so many, especially young people and ordinary individuals, because actually the bar is very low, in the sense that everyone who has an ounce of visibility and power it's not just a lacks courage, shines for complicity, and this is what makes me so unique. Other than that, I'm not unique. I represent the best of Europe, which has frankly stood up against the genocide and filled the streets and stood up in university campuses. And I want to acknowledge in particular someone who's among you. I'm really grateful, particularly for those of you who are standing. And thank you for enduring the sacrifice, but thank you in particular to the EU for Palestine, your civil servants who have demonstrated that you can be more civil than servant. And this is really necessary. This is really necessary in the continent that has killed 6 million Jews, and were not just killed in concentration camps, keep on reminding yourselves, they were killed by the negligence and indifference of their fellow citizens. Now, the presence of all of you honors me, and I want to highlight that it shows Palestinians, first and foremost, once again, that they have not been forgotten, that we, the people, see them, as we also see the Israelis who stand, they're very few, but those who stand against genocide, against occupation, and against apartheid. We see them, and we also see the Israelis who have turned into willful or unwillful executioners of the genocide of the Palestinian people. As I stand here today, we are 773 days into the genocide of the Palestinian people and counting. 57 years since the beginning of Israel's occupation, unlawful occupation of the Gaza Strip, West Bank and East Jerusalem, the land that remains of historical Palestine, and almost 8 years since the start of the destruction of historical Palestine as it existed. As Israel continues to violate what is celebrated by some, including in this city, as a ceasefire. There's no ceasefire. Since what is called ceasefire, 270 Palestinians have been killed and 635 have been injured. Gaza is wasteland, a wasteland of rubble and human remains. And it pierces my heart that as we speak, people are intense. Nearly 1.9 million people are without a home, are homeless, and the majority of them is intense, which are flooded. And this is the reality, and we cannot even stop this. So, and of course, you know already that 70,000 have been killed. Israel, by its own admission, by the Israeli army's admission, 85% of those killed in Gaza are civilians. And even if Israel recognizes it, European countries and others keep on treating Israel as it was a normal and ordinary, any state in the international community. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, settler colonial expansion intensifies. Israeli forces and settlers demolish homes, flatten vital infrastructure, poison water sources, and render Palestinian land uninhabitable, driving families from their homes in a calculated campaign of dispossession. So I really wonder why people get offended when we describe these events as pogroms. Because if they look like pogroms, I don't understand why we shouldn't call them pogroms. The atrocities we have witnessed over the past 2 years, which are the escalation of what has been denounced for decades by international, Palestinian, and Israeli human rights experts, will remain an indelible stain on our collective conscience, particularly as Europeans, and on these institutions' future. Not only has the European Union failed to act as a regional organization capable of enforcing even the most basic political measures to stop the most atrocious crimes, and these despite the mass upheavals across the continent led by ordinary people, but the lack of action of the European Union has been met with active complicity and has become the alibi of member states to violate their international law obligations, which are not superseded by EU laws and policies. For example, the duty not to aid and assist in the commission of a state in the commission of internationally wrongful act, or to review all trade agreement with a state systematically violating international norms. I think that the European Union, it's fair to say that the European Union has also become the space where states have actively violated with impunity the right of European citizens to associate, protest, severely limiting their freedom of expression. And a number of them, like France, Germany, Italy, who once enjoyed considering themselves the bastions of democracies and rule of law, have been the most determined in pursuing these restrictions. So it's fair to say that European leadership has been unmasked. It has revealed how deeply its Orientalism, which is an elegant word that a Palestinian scholar, Edward Said, found to talk about racism, and colonial posture still shape its political imagination. And how quickly the human rights flags we proudly wave for those who belong can be lowered when the victims are the feared other. And when the other, even when the other is a starving child. So now the so-called peace plan that I've, together with other independent experts and many scholars, have criticized, now is enshrined in the latest UN Security Council resolution. And I do believe that this is nothing more than a colonial mandate in disguise. It's a tragic day today, because this risks to be the nail in the coffin of Palestinian self-determination as protected by the United Nations. Although, as someone was sarcastically noticing, thank God no one respects UN Security Council resolutions when it comes to Palestine. And this genocide and the repeated failures to secure peace and justice have been sustained and enabled by a global system of complicity, with the European Union being part of its epicenter. As I've unveiled in my work as a special rapporteur, and particularly in my last two reports, from economy of occupation to economy of genocide and Gaza genocide, a collective crime, through unlawful actions and deliberate omissions, EU member states, their private companies, and the European Union itself have armed, funded, and shielded Israel's militarized settler colonial genocidal regime. So let's unpack what the European Union has done. How European states fit into this. Diplomatically, I found in my report that the European Union and its officials have continued to operate with Israel's business as usual, reiterated unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself, which has been invoked in a way that is not comparable with the UN Charter, and the EU's commitment to the security of Israel, which has been pretty much unconditional, with the consequences that we see under our eyes. From an economic point of view, the support of European states has not been merely rhetorical or diplomatic, it's been material. The European Union remains proudly Israel's largest trading partner, accounting for almost a third of Israel's total trade flows over the past 2 years. This has been made possible by the European Union-Israel Association Agreement, which was, as I often say, was a disgrace when it was entered into, but continues to operate unchallenged, with this institution failing over and over to act when the opportunity arises. Through the Horizon program alone, since 2014, the European Union has significantly financed Israeli entities, including military institutions such as the Israeli Aerospace Industries, Rafael Advanced Defense System, and Elbit System, and the Israeli Ministry of Defense itself. The European Union's financial backing goes further. Since 1981, the European Investment Bank has financed Israeli entities with 2.7 billion, including 760 million in loans to Bank Leumi, which is listed in the United Nations database of companies involved in settlement-related activities. Settlements, no need to remind, are war crimes. And the economic ties do not stop here. Since 2022, the European Union and Egypt developed a memorandum of understanding with Israel for the supply of gas via Egyptian infrastructures, overlooking evidence that the Israeli military enforces a naval blockade to protect the pipelines. Through my investigation, I identified a number of major corporations headquartered in EU member states, instrumental in financing, arming, and profiting from Israel's atrocities. And last but not least, the military sector remains a central pillar of the EU-Israel cooperation. During the genocide, arms exports and imports from EU member states to Israel have increased. And the European Union has itself supported Israel's military apparatus, investing in technologies tested on Palestinians to fortify its own fortress Europe, with Frontex deploying drones produced by Israeli companies in the sea of death that we have turned the Mediterranean into. One of the most disturbing outcomes of this, of all this, is that Europe is willing to ignore egregious human rights violations in order to perfect the tools for its own violent policies. At the same time, the European Union has been unable or unwilling to act when confronted with sanctions imposed by the United States on European citizens, myself included, I'm not the only one, and Palestinian human rights organizations allegedly for their cooperation with the International Criminal Court. It's interesting why European Union member states allow ICC-wanted individuals like the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to use their airspace or to receive them on their soil. The failure to activate the blocking statute, which exists precisely to shield the EU individuals from extraterritorial sanctions, is yet another example of the EU's overwhelming and unsurprising hypocrisy. An institution that claims to be founded on the rule of law has once again, sadly, bowed to external pressure, revealing how much foreign power might still weigh on his decision-making. And as the multilateral system fractures before our eyes, as EU member states withdraw support from the ICC or allow individuals subjects to arrest warrants, as I said, transit through the airspace, the need for a decisive, principled European stance has never been more urgent. And this is what I believe the European Union should consider doing. If you are asking yourselves, what would make sense doing? Let me answer bluntly. The Palestinian question is not complicated at all. It's simple. It doesn't require intelligence. It doesn't require writing new laws. It doesn't require inventing new mechanisms. It just demands courage, perseverance in the application of international law as it stands. Full stop. International law provides the roadmap, in fact. The International Court of Justice has affirmed that Israel's occupation is unlawful, an apartheid regime that must be dismantled. The troops must be withdrawn, the military troops must be withdrawn, the settlements must be dismantled, the economic exploitation of Palestinian resources must cease, compensation must be offered, reparations must be offered to the Palestinians for the crimes inflicted against them over the years of unlawful occupation, and those who have been forcibly displaced must be allowed to return. So this is a case where the International Court of Justice has spoken. Now, it seems that member states are waiting for the International Court of Justice to decide genocide as if it was their decision to act dependent on that, but it's not, because even when the International Court of Justice does speak, member states do not react. The court has in fact already recognized the plausible risk of genocide, and the UN Commission of Inquiry, which is an investigative body that most closely resembles a judicial mechanism, and its conclusions are the closest thing to a judicial pronouncement pending the decision of the International Court of Justice. Well, the Commission has concluded that genocide is indeed taking place. All major human rights organizations, including Israeli ones, have reached the same conclusions, and so genocide experts, genocide scholars, including the most illustrious Israeli genocide scholars. The genocide must be stopped, and the occupation and apartheid must be uprooted. Supporting Palestinian self-determination is not an act of charity or goodwill, is a binding legal obligation for all states and international organizations. So this means that it's necessary for member states, regardless of what the European Union decides for its EU association agreement, member states must suspend and review all ties with Israel, military, economic, and political. We as Europeans have a historical, moral, and legal obligations to act, and complicity, impose sanctions, hold perpetrators accountable, and finally put an end to the destruction and the suffering, wherever it is. I do believe that the European Union has demonstrated that it it can act decisively when it chooses to, for example, against Russia. I don't need to go through it. And today, I think the European Union has an historical opportunity to reposition itself and lead with integrity. I'm saying that just for the record, and not because I believe that all of a sudden the European leadership will change its appalling view and appalling policies, but because I do believe that we all need to be reminded of where the light ahead is, where the path ahead is when heading toward justice. I think it's fundamental to distance itself from the so-called US-led peace initiative that is in fact nothing more than a profit-driven scheme that imposes new occupiers over an already occupied land. If the concern is to secure peace, this is not going to pave anything toward peace, as Oslo imposed on us the word peace, confused everyone, distracted everyone from what was happening in Palestine, and still has led to the intensification of the matrix of control that has led to the current disaster today. And to ensure that the future of Palestine is placed in Palestinian hands, not in those of foreign powers, to ensure that aid is never weaponized but becomes a tool that genuinely serves Palestinian self-determination, that distant leaders are no longer allowed to shape the destiny of a land whose people are asking for only one thing, to live in peace on the little that remains of their own land. If this opportunity is missed, we will burn not only our own humanity, but also what the European Union was meant to represent, a war-torn continent that rose and chose once and for all to place human rights above territorial conquest, profit, and greed. So I ask you, are we still capable of imagining a Europe that truly lives up to that promise? Not for those in power, not only for the privileged among us, but for everyone. And if the answer is no, then we must ask ourselves, If the answer is yes, then we must ask ourselves, what are we prepared to do to change this? Conclusion. You do not have to look that far. The answer has already been given, once again, by the citizens of the European Union, millions of citizens of the European Union, by the constituencies many of you represent. For 2 years, Europeans have filled the streets in the rain, in the snow, in the heat, facing the relentless police batons, risking their jobs, their academic future, their safety, and that of their families. Many have been imprisoned for this, so you're still lucky. In our great democracies, the horrors of genocide and ethnic cleansing still lives in the memories, cities and streets of this continent, and the people have said enough. They won't allow such crimes to happen once again and anywhere for anyone. This unstoppable movement is telling us something very profound, that the earth of Europe, the value-driven Europe we once dreamed of and partly realized in the last decades, is not dead. It's happening, despite their declining leadership. We need to be better when we vote. If governments and international organizations no longer listen to the people, what do they represent? If institutions built on international cooperation continue to conduct business as usual with a genocidal regime, what legitimacy remains for them? So it is time for a new multilateralism where Europe can have a place only if it proves capable of reckoning with its past, of listening to the global majority, what we normally use, global south, and its leadership, offering meaningful, concrete reparations to those who were once colonized, of truly courageously fighting for the realization of human rights and dignity for every living being in our lands and beyond, of rejecting wild neoliberalism and the rapacious capitalism that allows multinational corporations to dictate foreign policy more than our own constitutions or our founding treaties. A new multilateralism founded in international law, a multilateralism for the many, not for the few. And only through this we can help Palestinians to free themselves from settler colonial occupation and all of us of what remains of that colonial mentality. Thank you.
before.
It's important to say the people say question, no speech. Usually they won't. Now we have time
We have
for
the
the people.
now we have the Palestinian organization. We have to speak. Yes. Before we move to the questions, we have a Palestinian organization, FASA, that has a surprise for Francesca.
On behalf, it's here, I'm here.
Okay.
On behalf of the Palestinian victims and on behalf of the Palestinian villagers and Palestinian farmers, at the end of the olive harvest season, they would like to give you an award to be in your custody till our liberation to be returned to Palestine. And therefore, I'm very honored to be the person who's going to hand it to you. And FASA campaign is the campaign for olive harvest season, is to defend and protect the Palestinian farmers and across the Palestinian villages from Masafir to Jenin. And of course, this year, as the United Nations have recorded, it was the bloodiest year for the Palestinian olive harvest farmers, and where more than 200 attacks, settler attacks, was occurred, and our international activists and Palestinian activists who were injured and who were actually, some of them even died in protection of our land and our trees. This trees is not only olive trees for our income, it's heritage for Palestinian, it's our roots, and it's our dignity. Thank you so much, and I will come here to give you the award, we can call it. I just wanted to say that the genocide is not over. We want to see you still in the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Before giving the floor to the public to see if you have any questions, I wanted to ask Francesca if the European Commission, I'm not talking about like the single member states, but if the European Commission could have done something to try to stop the genocide, the institution itself. Because, for example, Callas several times said that without the consensus they cannot do anything.
Answer, you didn't find anyone, nor your colleagues answering this question, so you came to me. Yes, but I've said it. You are not paying attention. So yes, cutting ties. I mean, the same thing. Look, take the sanction package you imposed on Russia, skip the word Russia, put Israel, and that's it. I mean, why don't you do that? It's not complicated. With some adjustment. The European Union must suspend its association agreement with Israel. There is another problem that I've not mentioned yet, but there are European citizens fighting in the Israeli army. Yesterday, I received a delegation of refusnik, of Israeli citizens, young Israeli citizens who came to greet me and to thank me for my work and to brief me about the conditions of the Israelis who decide not to fight, and also the situation among Israeli soldiers. I mean, as you might have seen, some of them are breaking the silence about the crimes that have been committed in Gaza, and there is very little knowledge about the level of suicide, as I expected. In the sense, these are young people who have been turned indoctrinated in the most pernicious way, and therefore they've been turned into, as I said, the willful executioners of a genocide. Now, those with European citizens must be considered suspects. The moment, if they have been fighting in the army in the past, at least in the past 2 years, the moment they stand on European soil, they need to be investigated. And if the investigation so warrants, they need to be prosecuted. And if evidence is conducive to conclude that they've committed crimes, they have to be convicted. I mean, laws must apply to them as well as Europeans, and there are Europeans from Italy, from France, from Belgium, and many other countries who are in this situation, and this is something on which I do believe you have some leverage and power. Also, the other thing is that individual member states should make sure that businesses registered in their countries comply with international law. There are businesses, like I mentioned in my report, a few, but the case is one case is Airbnb on Booking.com. They are involved in activities that are considered crimes under EU own legislation. So there are so many things that can be done. But so while states must cut ties and impose sanctions, and of course it would be welcome to have the European Union or the European Commission initiating the process itself, businesses themselves have to be reminded of their obligation to divest. Otherwise, like anyone else, they will have to face justice. In fact, there are many lawyers. I really salute and thank those lawyers across Europe, from I was saying England, no, from Ireland to France, Spain, the Netherlands, Italy, who are activating themselves pro bono, first and foremost, to defend the human rights defenders who have faced repression because of their stance against the genocide and the apartheid, but also in order to initiate strategic litigations against both businesses and often state authorities involved, either directed to or contributing to or causing crimes against the Palestinians or in the occupied Palestinian territory. And eventually citizens, citizens can decide not to, they have a power, not just to vote, but the pocket power. So they have to decide where they put their money, the goods and products they purchase, the services they use. This is what has contributed to bring down, to dismantle apartheid already once in the case of South Africa. And it was a young European who started the global movement that initiated the largest boycott divestment campaign in modern history, which was the one against apartheid South Africa. And it was an Irish 21-year-old girl who decided to refuse to pass South African produce at the counter, and she initiated a strike that led to the global movement. I think that this is very, very important, so that citizens and also as entrepreneurs decide not to host products that are connected to the occupation. And there is one more thing that I wanted to say. I want to thank everyone, not just the Europeans, but the flotilla. This has been so beautiful. In fact, I think tonight, as you were speaking, I was feeling guilty twice, because I was feeling guilty not only toward the Palestinians because of the space the thanking me was taking, but also because we should have acknowledged the flotilla members. And I thank all of you who have done it, and all of you who will continue to sustain this effort, that the flotilla is not over because the genocide is not over. And I'm so proud that Italy, once again, together with the flotilla, the dock workers in Italy, together with the flotilla, have called for yet another strike. And this is what should be supported. I'm not here talking to you as an institution, but also as individuals. Protest needs to move toward the ports, where Israeli goods get in and goods toward Israel leave European shores, often weapons. So together we can make it, I think, but we need to be ready to sacrifice a little bit of our comfort so that an entire people won't have to sacrifice everything they have and they are. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't know if the deputies have questions for... Okay. Okay, so if someone from the floor, yes. Do we have a microphone to...
Can I?
Okay. There,
Yes.
okay.
Hi. Francesca, my name is Sanji, and I'm a Sri Lankan human rights activist. Before I ask you a question, I have a message for you from the Free Palestine movement of Sri Lanka. And we are around 400 human rights activists, and they wanted to wish you strength and resilience for this quest for justice in Palestine. So thank you for what you're doing. And secondly, on the 8th of October 2023, I noted Israeli government officials openly declaring intent for genocide. And I tweeted at Madame von der Leyen and Madame Metsola and Monsieur Charles Michel, who was the president of the council at that time, all three of them saying, Israel is openly declaring intent for genocide. Where are the European values? And I have continued the Twitter thread of 870 tweets documenting the genocide. And as somebody who is originally from outside Europe, I have a question for you leaders. Article 2 of the Lisbon Treaty is speaking of the European values, which the EU is founded upon: democracy, human rights, human dignity, rule of law, equality, freedom, and so on. And also the Article 2 of the EU-Israel Association Agreement is covering democracy and human rights. Since Israel has openly violated this, how come we are still waiting? Is there any way to take legal action? Can we sue the EU institutions for violating the EU-Israel Association Agreement? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Rudy Kennis. I'm an MEP for the left. Just yesterday, the UN Security Council passed a resolution laying the foundation for turning Gaza actually into a protectorate under US control. The fact that the UN legitimates this form of imperial domination and rewards Israel's genocidal violence is, of course, incredibly worrying. So I want to ask you, Ms. Albanese, as you are the UN rapporteur, how, and if the answer to that is yes, can we reform the UN so that it can actually fight against occupation and genocide? And how do you see the future of the UN in this changing order in the world? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alla. I am Palestinian from Gaza. First of all, by my name and my people name in Gaza in particular, I would like to thank everyone here who stand up for Palestine and for Palestinians' rights and survive. thank you very much for your efforts. I appreciate it a lot, and it melt my heart that some people are really mean to help the Palestinians and to give them the chance to raise their voices around the world, to talk in that governmental institutions, and I'm really thankful for you, and I'm sorry for because of that time. I just have a question for you, if you don't mind, please. What immediate steps are necessary to protect civilians on the ground? And thank you very much again. Thank you.
Maybe another couple of questions. Him? Yeah.
Sí, quería.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Francesca, on behalf of the Greens. I'm Jaume Asens. Thank you for your work, for your courage. You've done something very difficult. Very few have done it, for the international law to mean something, for the words to have some sense, and also for the victims not to be buried in the indifference or propaganda. And you're the light, you're the source of inspiration for many of us who have fight this cause. The comment is related to what has been said before, the accountability of businesses and also the responsibility of Europe and its leaders. You've talked about the criminal responsibility. I don't think that we should renounce to say things by their name. It's a criminal responsibility, and I'm a specialist in international law, and the Rome Statute in its Article 25 states precisely what the European countries are doing to give what is called necessary collaborators. When you say we don't directly participate in the crime, I think we do, not only because of the trade agreement, but also because we give them the instrument to commit the crime. Charles Taylor is in prison because he armed a militia in Sierra Leone. So what is applied to African leaders must be applied to European leaders. And I conclude. And my question is the following, and it is related to what you've said before. You don't want to talk about yourself, you want to talk about Palestine, and the time we spend talking about you, we don't spend it talking about Palestine. And I don't agree. Talking about you is talking about Palestine, and you've been able to transform the mandate that you have in a sort of resistance, ethnic resistance. And do you believe that we could approve a resolution regarding the sanctions that they've imposed on you? Is there something that we can demand or ask so that these obstacles to which you're confronted in your work can be eased? We would be extremely satisfied if we can be useful in changing the situation you live. Thank you.
The man at the end with the blue shirt. I saw you. Yeah? You asked before? Yeah.
You need a microphone for the translators to hear you.
Hello, Francesca. Thank you for coming. And thank you for everything you say, you write, and you do. We are from the EU Staff for Peace. I luckily retired a few months ago, but all my colleagues who are still in the institution, they have a hard time defending the EU values and being told that they have to remain neutral and obedient to the hierarchy. So they are in a difficult situation, and we don't understand how the Commission, supposed to be an expert body, is just trying to please some majority among member states. That's not the job of the Commission. And what would be your advice? How should we continue this fight? Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank the Palestinian farmers and the organizations behind them for awarding me this precious prize. I tell everyone, whatever award a special rapporteur receives, it's just in custody. And I will be the privileged custodian of this as well till the day I can rejoin you on a freed land. And so let's get to the questions. Can European institutions be sued? I don't think there is a precedent of international organizations being sued. There has been an attempt to sue European leaders, and so far it has not been successful. There are two things that I believe lawyers and advocates, civil society must take into account. The first is that judges are also people who read the newspapers, and Europe is definitely not a conducive place to know about Palestine. Palestine is perceived as the bête noire of everything, in the sense no one wants to touch it. It's not just a hot potato, it's toxic. And so for many, this is a political, highly politicized issue. I wouldn't be surprised if this is also something that might affect the success or not of a case. So each case is to be prepared strategically and very, very, very effectively. So this is why I also encourage the cooperation among lawyers across this beautiful continent. At the same time, I do hear how puzzled you are, and many are saying, yeah, but how come that member states have agreed upon all these and then look at what they're doing? This is the trajectory of history. This is the trajectory of humanity. I mean, in this continent, until a few decades ago, I mean, without even unpacking all the brutality we have done throughout colonialism or the Holocaust, which was nothing else than bringing colonial methods, things that had been experimented on colonized people, back here on our soil, because of course the Jews are Semitic, and the largest Semitic presence in Europe. Now the situation is different, but they were other from us. But until a few decades ago, some decades ago, some people of color were held in zoos. So this is really who we are. So I do think that when I look at, and plus in my lifetime, there are other genocides that have taken place. This is the first genocide where I see a popular uprising and saying what has happened to never again. This is the first time where I see a global resistance, which has started not this year. It has started in 2023 in university campuses. This is why I keep on insisting on how important is the young generation, the same young generation that complains not to be heard and not to be represented by these institutions and or political parties. And this is probably why we have a return of right-wing politicians, because there are also so many who do not vote in this continent, I mean, in this part of the world. But I would say that it seems to me incredibly important that in the streets people are talking about the judicial developments. They're talking about the International Criminal Court, of the International Court of Justice. This signals a maturity toward the appreciation of that social contract that we also have at the European level, and the European governance and leadership is so brazenly betraying. So this is why the protest must continue for you as individuals, because it's an act of sanity, so that you don't feel completely alone. You are seen because the little developments that have taken place are also the result, not just of the slaughters of the Palestinians. I don't think so. It's the result of the pressure that all together you have created, but also do that for the Palestinians, because and for all the other people who are dying in desperate conflicts, who should have been prevented, and in which member states, including ours, are profiting and seem not to be seen. This is the time to really stand together as one. Togetherness is to be experienced in this moment, standing together to also change things. And I don't know, maybe I'm too idealist, but I do think that things can change. Revolutions have happened before. The apartheid has ended. Of course, the apartheid in South Africa has ended, at least in the law, which is a huge improvement, but still work is to be done, because it takes time to heal the wounds of century-long injustices. And the same thing is with us. I think that the young generation is healing itself from the racism that has led our ancestors to commit the colonial crimes and also the Holocaust. So we need to continue. We cannot stop. There is no other peaceful way other than this. How can we reform the United Nations? Look, if we can't even stop a genocide, including and if the Security Council can vote happily and pat each other's shoulders after such a resolution, I don't think that we are ready for reform. But this is what will naturally happen if what I call the watermelon revolution will bear fruits one day. I do believe that it's possible. We need to have what Ilan Pappé calls the power of imagination, because of course the violence that we see today is horrible, but this is also the sign of a decline. It's a sign of a decline and a sign of fear. The fact that I'm sanctioned is because I've not been, until now, it's part of an escalation. And I've taken into account the risks. I come from a country where people standing for justice have been ruined. Their reputation has been ruined. The Sicilians have a term which is called mascariare, like covering people with mud, so accusing you of all sorts of things. And this has been done to me. The reason why many do believe that I hold anti-Semitic values is because my reputation has been slandered by the media, by the pro-Israel and Israeli propaganda, but also thanks to some of your your representatives, France and Germany. Germany accusing me of anti-Semitism. I still wait for the apologies from both countries. I have to say that the Germans are better than the French, because at least they apologized for the... I'm giving a practical example. Just toward me, because they apologized for trying to arrest me, for the police threatening to arrest me. It's true that in France this has not happened, so I take back the compliment to the Germans, which is really undue, unnecessary. But however, I don't think I can spend more words on the United Nations right now. What immediate steps can be taken? I do think that what the flotilla has started is incredible, and it shouldn't have been done by 450 people who put their life at risk. They did put their life at risk by taking the sea on improbable boats that were clearly unsafe. presumably Israel has been using drones against these boats, and it doesn't seem that European Union has made a fuss out of it. So we are fine with having someone, another country, bombing, including European citizens while at sea. And also, European citizens have endured cruel, inhumane, degrading treatment and possibly torture. And this is to be investigated. So, I mean, as part of my next report on torture, I will look into this. I remember, I forgot to say something to the question on the sanctions. So I think that it's critical that the blockade is broken by member states. Member states with a port in the Mediterranean Sea, including Slovenia, who has a small coast, get some boats and go break the blockades. Because Slovenia is one of those few countries who have managed not to make us be ashamed of being Europeans. So please get together, put pressure on your states. Spain, Italy needs to send boats not to stop those trying to break the blockades, but to break the blockade yourself. I realized I lost the train of thought before. I was saying I come from the countries where people have been killed because of, people have been ruined in their reputation, and people have been killed for standing for justice. So I do have seen an intensification of the attacks against me. I think with the sanctions we have, which is financial censorship, we have reached a middle level. Of course, there are threats against me, against the members of my family, but people choose. I mean, of course, I'm not happy of being waken up in the middle of the night with unpleasant wishes, and here we are. And the thing is that the sanctions are very impairing. The sanctions are very impairing because I think that it's absurd that I cannot travel to the United States as a UN expert, having a diplomatic status. And I also have an American daughter. My husband works for a US-based organization. They cannot go to the US because both of them would be presumed guilty of helping a sanctioned person, which means up to 20 years in jail, up to $1 million fine. We cannot afford that. And no, this is really serious because I cannot open a bank account. And it's not normal in this world. I cannot open a bank account ever. I cannot pay anything. I cannot receive payments. And it's impossible also, I also have difficulties. How am I going to pay the taxes? Because of European legislation, so I'm really in between a rock and a hard place, because on the one hand, I cannot ask other people to receive money for me, because of the banking regulations, but at the same time I cannot receive money myself. How am I supposed to live? So again, it happens to me, it happens to the judges of the ICC, to the prosecutors, some of whom have European citizenship. It shouldn't be that. So of course the European Union should have stood up. My own country should have stood up. And the fact that it's not happening reveals the fracture of our system. However, some of us accept to be silenced, others do not. So they can strip me of everything, and until I have, as I said, until I have breath in my lungs, I will keep on doing what I'm doing. And I totally agree. I totally agree on the point you made on the need to look at the criminal responsibility and liability of individuals and businesses, or including public officials, because there is no statute of limitations, no immunity for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. So there should be investigations. And yes, I totally agree with you. I mean, that's not, I mean, at least at the international criminal level, the international jurisprudence is developed enough to understand that if there is a direct connection with the commission of a crime, especially in the time of even the International Court of Justice has recognized the risk of a genocide, the investigation won't be lenient. But of course, this must be started. Two things. One on it's not correct to say that the multilateral system has been entirely failing the Palestinians, because, for example, look at what South Africa has done. It's phenomenal, it's wonderful, and this is what I think has ignited a sense of trust in international law, not just what I've been doing, what other special procedures, special rapporteurs have been doing. I have 32 colleagues who have put their life in the line as I have. Probably I am the face for the independence, UN defense of the rights of the Palestinians under occupation, apartheid and genocide, but I'm definitely not the only one. And some of them are American citizens or American residents. So for them, it's even more impactful, the repression, the anti-Palestinianism than toward me. But there are countries, I want to signal in particular the initiative of the Hague Group, which is led by 13 states, primarily South Africa, Colombia, and Namibia, and Malaysia, and other states. And they have agreed, while some member states were engaging in discussion on recognizing the state of Palestine, which is right. It's the right thing to do, 35 years late, but good thing to do. At the same time, it shouldn't distract from the ongoing crimes that have to be stopped. So these states have agreed not to transfer weapons or components to Israel, not to use their ports for transfers toward Israel, and to ensure accountability, so the execution of the ICC arrest warrants, but also other forms of investigation, because there are Israeli soldiers who are traveling for what I call the R&R, post-genocide R&R, the rescue and recover, the rest and recover, including in my own country, in Italy. They've even been protected by law enforcement agents in Sardinia, and this is not acceptable. So I think that part of the complementarity existing in international criminal law system is that national prosecutors must initiate investigations wherever there is, but wherever it's warranted, wherever an Israeli who might have been engaged in the army, which doesn't mean, of course, profiling everyone, but profiling those who have been in the army before anything else. The last word is about neutrality. Neutrality is a very important concept. Neutrality is what is needed to humanitarian organizations to operate in situations of conflicts. If you read what is neutrality in its plain meaning, it's also indifference, which I don't think that this is what humanitarian operators do. But it's a very context-specific concept. And it also concerns states who decide, for example, not to intervene in conflicts. They stay neutral. So they do not attack, they are spared from retaliation. This is what protects you, not engaging in war, not arming yourself up to your teeth. Just it's worth reminding in this institution. But I think I cannot imagine a most preposterous invocation of the principle of neutrality than what is being done by public institutions sitting comfortably here in Brussels, or institutions primarily in the West, to keep engaging with the apartheid state of Israel, including as it was committing a genocide. This is not neutrality. This is indifference, or this is just accepting a form of complicity, even at the moral level. And instead, what I do practice, what I do believe that should be our polar star is impartiality. You look at the facts objectively as they happen, as you can document them, and then once the facts are documented, it's not up to you, in this case it's not up to me as an observer, to be equidistant from the parties and confusing the relationship of those who certain acts commit, which in the case of Israel, and Palestine, or the Israelis and the Palestinians, the relationship is not that it's not symmetrical. We tend to project or to present the Palestinians, some of us, as difficult neighbors. But this is not a neighborhood dispute. This is an abusive cohabitation where one abuses of the other, subjugates the other. And what would you do in the case of domestic violence? You intervene and do not provide the justifications for the abuser. This is what it should be done, because this is what is an unlawful occupation. And therefore, I think it's fundamental. In my case, it's easy because I'm not a politician. So for me, it's very obvious, as it should be for politicians, to be guided by international law. But once the facts are established and analyzed according to international law, there is only one way: applying international law. Thank you.